It was the crime that shook the nation. 4 University of Idaho students brutally stabbed to death in the middle of the night. And after a multi-state investigation using videos, cell phone analysis, and DNA tracing, investigators found the man they say is responsible for killing Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana. Now the accused is back in the courtroom as his defense team is preparing for his upcoming trial. Tonight, we're breaking down everything you need to know from today's hearing for Bryan Kohberger.
Good Friday evening to you and welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm Julie Grant in tonight for Vinnie Politan. We kick things off this evening in Idaho, where earlier this year the legislature voted to authorize the firing squad as a form of execution. That new law went into effect on July 1st and makes death by firing squad an option if lethal drugs are unavailable. And of course, prosecutors are pursuing the death penalty against accused killer Bryan Kohberger if he is convicted at his trial, which is currently set for this fall. Now, while Kohberger was charged before the new law went into effect, it is still possible that he could face this form of execution. So that is important to know. Now, today, Bryan Kohberger is in court and still in court right now at this hour for his motions hearing. Also in the courtroom, family members of Kaylee Goncalves, one of those slain college students. Now, one family member today could be seen wearing a t-shirt reading "Justice for Kaylee." Idaho House Bill 186, shots fired. Let's take you out to Idaho now, where we find Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter standing by for us. She's been in the courtroom watching this hearing all day and has all the details for us tonight. Chanley, good evening to you.
Good evening, Julie. That's right. Those family members of Kaylee Goncalves, solemn today but hopeful as they entered the courtroom hours ago to watch this all unfold. Kaylee's mother, Christy, told me that they're optimistic and that the judge will make some of those right decisions. And as I just left the courtroom now, as you said, it's still transpiring inside the Slaytaw County Courthouse. It's about to wrap up for the day, it seems. I see the family members looking to each other as the judge is making some decisions, nodding, agreeing with prosecutors' arguments, and staring down the man they believe murdered their daughter and 3 of her friends last November. Inside the courtroom, we all have our eyes on the door where the accused mass murderer would enter and exit. He's wearing a gray suit and tie. His ankles aren't shackled together, but you can tell there's some sort of security around his leg or ankle that makes it a little bit difficult for him to walk normally, it seems as though, in the courtroom. And he gave a slight glance up toward the gallery when he first entered earlier today with this weird, kind of odd, almost smile, like a slight smile, like he caught himself possibly trying to smile. It made an awkward moment. I looked over to the family of Kaylee Goncalves in that moment, and her mother, Christy, looked to her sister, rolled her eyes, and shook her head at what the defendant did in that moment. And the only other noticeable moment, he listens to the argument as he turns his head to each person talking. There was a lighthearted moment, a chuckle from the judge, and in that moment the defendant also smiled, Julie, as well. But it's been a long day for all those who have been a part of this hearing.
Absolutely, Chanley. And we know so many different motions on the table. If you would kind of hit the highlights for us, please, the biggies that they've taken up so far, if you would.
Absolutely. So most of the day has been spent on the defendant's 3rd motion to compel discovery, specifically the genetic genealogy investigation that the FBI took on in November to try to pinpoint a potential lead, a potential suspect in this case. As we know, Julie, that homed in on the biological father of the defendant and made him the prime suspect. So now the defense wants all of that uncovered. And in their effort to try to convince the judge today that this is needed, they called 4 experts to the stand to talk about, to kind of educate the judge a little bit more about why they would need this type of information. And not only that, but they also say there's still some things that the prosecution hasn't turned over, including this. Let's watch.
That has to do with other DNA profiles found at the scene. They have provided full discovery for the sheet, the DNA found on the knife sheet, but not the other 3 unidentified male DNA samples two from within the house, one from outside of the house.
Your Honor, we didn't realize this was going to be an issue today. We have given the defense everything that we received from the lab. They'd asked for DNA workups on other people. To the extent that they don't have them, they weren't done. We can't produce something that doesn't exist.
So that was interesting. Actually, the arguments went on this afternoon, Julie, to reveal that the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, says that those profiles, those unidentified 3 DNA profiles, aren't eligible to even be put into CODIS. The defense acted surprised, but then the prosecution said that should not be a surprise. We've told you before. That seems to be a theme between both of these parties. But other than that, like I said, the defense team calling these potential experts, a couple of lawyers who talk about what a reasonable defense attorney would need to be able to attack this type of investigation. They would need that discovery to hire potentially their own experts. And they also called a couple of experts trained in genetic genealogy as well, including Gabriela Vargas, who doesn't really have a scientific background, but she did offer a key piece of information possibly about the testing and how that would unfold. Let's watch.
If I'm an attorney and I found a case where genetic genealogy has been utilized by law enforcement, and I want to know if they follow the protocols and rules, do I need the genetic genealogy information that, like, you produce as a forensic genetic genealogist? Do I need that information so I would know?
If you wanted to know what the process was, whether or not there was work product, if you wanted to verify how did you come to your conclusion, absolutely.
How about if I wanted to know what the rules are broken?
You would need the data.
Essentially, her testimony was a part of the defense argument, Julie, where they want to make sure that the FBI followed the proper protocol and even garnering some of these profiles that maybe on these public databases would have opted out of law enforcement having access to them at all.
Sure. This is fascinating stuff. This defense team certainly very diligent, as you know, Chanley. How was it hearing the arguments? Did it get heated at points? Would you kind of take us back what the judge said, if anything, in the midst of hearing from both sides, please?
Right, Julie, it was interesting to hear, especially the prosecutors respond to this in argument, because they didn't cross-examine any of the defense's experts that they put on the stand today. So we really didn't know what they were thinking until the prosecutor stood up to address it. Ultimately, the defense summarized what the experts said throughout the day, and then the prosecutor stood to address it, saying that the material that this defense is seeking does not fall under the Idaho rules of discovery, and it's not even in their possession, because this genetic genealogy investigation only is a process that leads to a lead. It leads to an investigative lead, but then they confirm that lead with the investigation. The confirmation is what matters, according to prosecutors. This does not, and they wouldn't have called any of this during a trial. It's not relevant to the trial, and they say all that information should be protected and not revealed to the defense or really anyone, Julie.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I see what
and
you're saying.
And the judge did not make a decision. Yeah. I forgot that part.
No, that's okay. Yeah. Well, and this is a lot. I'm wondering, and you've gone through all the motions, and I'm wondering if they're even going to get to everything today, Chanley. You know, what's coming next? Might they have to take this into another day or something?
Well, I think he's going to take that one under advisement. And I just want to kind of note that court is done now, and we've seen the family members of Kaylee Goncalves leave behind me. So that's kind of the action that's going on around me currently outside this courthouse. But so the judge is going to take that under advisement as far as whether or not the genetic genealogy investigation will be handed over. But today there were some key decisions that were made, Julie, the other pending motions. As far as the motion from prosecutors to reconsider that 37-day stay, stay that the judge did grant. That was taken up, as well as the motion from the defense for a second stay in the proceedings, because again, they want to continue investigating the grand jury proceedings and attack the indictment against the defendant. Ultimately, the judge rolled back the previous stay and denied that second stay. He wants this trial to happen October 2nd, and in that effort, he actually outlined a very specific schedule in the next 6 weeks. A lot needs to be accomplished. This is a death penalty trial. He says that he's going to summon 1,000 potential jurors from Lake County to show up a week before that to be voir dired for this potential trial to happen. And the other big issue, Julie, I want to tell you about is this motion from prosecutors to compel a more specific alibi from the defendant, who admits he was driving around the night of the murders, but not at the crime scene. Ultimately, the defense says we don't have any more information, and the judge is going to give them a couple of more weeks to deliver a more specific alibi, or they are risking waiving any potential witness who may corroborate his whereabouts on the night of the murders, Julie.
Oh, that's fascinating stuff. I know so many of us, I know you, me, Chandler, we were all hoping to hear that motion taken up. Well, that's good to know. So we'll have to just wait a little longer, but not too much longer, as you've told us with trial. That date not moving, October the 2nd. We're going to mark our calendars. Chandler Painter, thank you so much for that update. We'll see you later. We're going to squeeze in a break. Here's what's coming up next for you here on Closing Arguments.
In Jacksonville, Florida, Jared Bryan, a Microsoft executive, gunned down in front of his own daughter. The triggerman pleaded guilty to his part in the crime, but the case is far from over. Bryan's ex-wife and her new husband are now both facing charges in the murder case. Tonight, we're hearing from Jared Bryan's widow as she reacts to the news of the ex-wife's arrest.
There's no way he could have gone around the tire, which is why we believe he stopped to move it. And I'm not sure if he actually got to the tire. I believe he was actually pretty close to the vehicle when he was attacked. He did not have much time.
A man married 6 times. 4 of his wives died under mysterious circumstances.
Eccentric widower Thomas Randolph,
charged with the murders of his wife and the man he allegedly paid to kill her.
a 2017 conviction overturned.
The plan between Mr. Miller and Mr. Randolph was to kill Sharon.
Now he faces a jury once again.
The Widower Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
So it's not as easy as just getting a profile and sticking it in your computer and having an answer.
Oh, absolutely not. I've had cases that have taken me 14 months to solve.
A lot of back and forth today in the courtroom. As a matter of fact, the hearing just ended in Idaho for defendant Bryan Kohberger. Some of the big takeaways, as Chandler was just telling us, the judge is holding that trial date firm on the court's calendar, October 2nd, denying that request to stay the proceedings from the defense. And he is going to take under advisement all of the testimony and arguments made today and issue his ruling at a later date about what the defense should receive in discovery. Essentially, they want to know everything about the process that was done and the genealogical DNA testing to figure out that it was the offspring of Papa Kohberger on that knife sheath snap. And the state is saying, look, under the rules, that's not covered. You know, all we do is use that as a tool to find a lead, then we confirm the lead through other pieces of evidence that we've uncovered. Before I bring in my expert panel, I want to play a clip from the hearing today where the defense presented a witness who's an attorney and a consultant at trial on DNA evidence. And here, the defense is talking about how they want 3 other unidentified men and their DNA to be put into the CODIS system, that national law enforcement system. Let's take a look.
In our case, there are 3 other unidentified male profiles. What are we missing?
Well, I believe at this moment we have all of the reports of the testing from the microscope in these laboratories. What I believe was requested and what has not been produced is any direct information and documentation of whether those profiles were uploaded to state or federal CODIS database.
All right, so the defense here using this witness to establish the point that they want to know whose DNA this is. Who are these 3 unidentified males whose DNA was there at the house? And then on the contrary position, the state is saying, well, we can't just put the DNA of these individuals into the CODIS system that's used in our criminal justice system. These individuals would be ineligible, is what the state is saying. Let me bring in our panel. Boy, oh boy, am I in great company tonight. First up, in Miami, Florida, criminologist, author, and professor at St. Thomas University, Dr. Debbie Goodman is with us. In Los Angeles, California, retired FBI special agent and lawyer Bobby Chacon is with us. Also in Los Angeles, senior reporter for DailyMail.com, the host of Daily Mail Crime on TikTok, and victim advocate for Project Cold Case, Caitlin Becker. And in California, clinical forensic neuropsychologist and professor at Pepperdine University, Dr. Judy Ho. Wonderful to have you all on the program. My goodness, I'm in great company, as I said tonight. So let's dig right in. You know, who's right here? I'm so curious why these individuals would be ineligible to go into the CODIS system, which helps us when there's criminal conduct, as we know. Maybe they're not criminals. Bobby Chacon, I want to tap you for this one and really hit on your expertise here. Why do you think the state would say, we can't do this?
Well, you know, it's a civil liberties issue. I mean, you can't just throw anybody into CODIS. You have to be a suspect in a crime to do those kind of searches. We can't just take random samples of people. You know, that house probably had many, many male DNA samples in it, in the living room, the kitchen, wherever. We couldn't just collect all of those and throw them in, you know, in a shotgun fashion into CODIS, and then, you know, maybe we'll get a crime here and a crime there that they match. I mean, that's a violation of civil liberties. We can't do that. So when you have a suspect identified, then you put them into CODIS, and then you get the lead.
I got you. We just can't take innocent people and put them in that system. Bobby Chacon, I knew you would know. Thank you. Okay, so here we go. So the defense wants these things. The state is saying for much of the arguments, we don't have it. I mean, they were asking for logs from 6 months prior in the year. And even the judge at one point was saying, look, if it's not there, it's not there. We can't give you something that just doesn't exist. But we know there is a lot of evidence that is there. We've got surveillance footage, cell phone analysis, videotaped evidence. I mean, all sorts of things that helped the state develop what was initially just a lead from that DNA in Papa Kohberger. Dr. Debbie Goodman, you don't have a horse in this race. Analyze this objectively for us. What is the strength of the state's case, in your opinion, please?
Absolutely. Well, good evening, Julie and our esteemed colleagues. I think that this is such a strong prosecutorial case. Why? Because of what you've mentioned, because of this knife sheath, because we have the phone pings, we have a car on surveillance. What we will also come to find out on October 2nd is that this individual, although we may classify circumstantial evidence such as him reaching out to one or more of our victims on social media, there will also be photos of one or more victims that he has taken on his phone. So I think between not only the tangible DNA evidence, and those of us in the field, we tend to say that DNA is the silent witness. It doesn't speak, Julie, but it speaks volumes. So we have that to go on, plus the totality of the other evidence. And if this defense is really only coming up with the alibi of driving around to nowhere, I feel it's just exceedingly weak.
I'm with you, Dr. Debbie. Yeah, it's a very, very poor alibi. Can we even call it that? The car? I mean, don't even get me started. He's driving past the home where the murders were committed. I have a clip just into our newsroom. We know that hearing was just wrapping up as we were talking with Chanley, and the state is making its final arguments to the judge. Let's listen to this portion of it where they're responding to another one of the defense requests. Apparently, the defense team wanting to know what the protocols of the FBI agents are. Let's watch.
They'll say something like, well, Your Honor, maybe the FBI broke the rules, maybe the FBI didn't. There's no way we can know unless you give us that information. Well, you can say that about anything. Maybe when they were doing this one piece of the investigation, they followed their internal procedures, maybe they didn't. And if that's sufficient to get disclosure, then what the Idaho Supreme Court here said is invalid. It conflicts directly with what they said. So the mere possibility that the FBI or some other law enforcement agency violated the terms of service, that alone should not be enough to force disclosure of the information. Because otherwise you're going to run into this issue where you just have to disclose the entire investigation every single time.
Oh, okay. So the defense attorneys here doing their job, trying to get the distraction everywhere else away from Bryan Kohberger, what the police did, what was done in the crime lab. But what about their client? That's what I think many people want to know more about him. Dr. Judy Ho, to you next, please. Want to know if you were able to interview and evaluate Bryan Kohberger, and if, let's just say for the sake of our analysis tonight, he would have to answer you truthfully on everything, and you got to get in a room alone with him and ask him whatever you want. What would you be asking him, please, and why, Doctor?
Well, there are so many questions that it would have for this individual, but there's already a couple of little tip-offs that we can see that could mean that something is a bit amiss, even in the little that we know. For example, even the fact that he was a criminology doctoral student. I mean, clearly there's so many people who pursue this field that have no type of history like this, but sometimes when we're analyzing people who have been mass murderers, you see that they actually have some expert knowledge in fields that might relate to policing or being an attorney or working towards being an attorney in the field of law. It's because it puts them in a place where they can actually understand the system and maybe potentially find a way to evade that system. That is something that we sometimes see when back analyzing some of these cases. But in terms of the questions that I would ask about his childhood history. I would ask about any signs of difficulties with peers from a young age, difficulties with authority, a lot of untapped anger, things that may have been traumatic that weren't dealt with. There's a lot that we know about looking at the profiles of people who, for example, have antisocial personality disorder or who might be deemed colloquially a psychopath. And we see that there's a number of different traits and qualities, maybe not being able to settle into one relationship, going from relationship to job, perhaps showing signs early on of less empathy than the average individual. There's a plethora of things that we can ask to understand whether or not he may have had the proclivity to do what he is alleged to have done.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dr. Judy. Last but certainly not least, Caitlin Becker, want to ask you about some of the public sentiment and the public interest. And you've certainly got your finger on the pulse of what's going on the true crime TikTok and really on all the platforms that are discussing this day after day. I mean, nobody has let up in the interest here. What do you think are the biggest unanswered questions today in this case against Bryan Kohberger? Please, Caitlin.
I can tell you the biggest question that we consistently get across Reddit, social media, our TikToks. I mean, we have millions of views and millions of comments, and most of them say the same thing. They want to know the motive and they want to know the connection. Those are the things that people have the biggest questions about. Why did he target this house, these victims? Was it one victim? Was it two victims? Was it all four victims? What was the reason? What was the motive? And what is the connection?
Absolutely, Caitlin. I mean, it's been something I've been pondering, thinking about how I would try the case. As somebody who used to serve as a prosecutor, what would I go forth with? Dr. Debbie Goodman, let me bring you back in on a point. We know there was a lot of social media backlash about Dylan Mortensen, who's going to be a key witness for the state, maybe the one who IDs Bryan Kohberger. She got to look at the guy with the bushy hair, the bushy eyebrows, you know, the dark shirt, the mask. Maybe she's going to be a key to this case. I think so. But people online were very suspicious. Why didn't she call police? Wouldn't he have had blood all over him if he did 4 homicides? Tell me what you think about that, Dr. Debbie. The idea that somebody could potentially, kill 4 people, if it was him, if he did do what police say he did, murdered 4 people, and then walk by someone else and not touch her. Why is that?
Yeah, great question. To which I will say, Julie, when we have these types of individuals, murderers, and they decide they will plan their work, they'll work their plan, everything A to Z, they are in charge of. So although he's this PhD student studying, but my theory on this is that it's an acronym I created, JAR, J-A-R. I think this was an individual deeply rooted with jealousy, anger, and revenge. I think our 4 victims represented everything that he was not, particularly from a socialization standpoint. They were smart, they were outgoing, very connected to their own peer group. This individual was not. I think he wanted to be. I think he had this purpose in mind. These individuals who participate in mass murders, serial murders, they're very selective about everything. The victimology, the day, the time, the weapon, and such. And if they don't want to kill somebody, they will not. So I do feel that, unfortunately and tragically, our 4 victims were the planned and purposeful target of this individual. And with our Dylan, our housemate, our roommate here, he did not want to proceed with the taking of the life.
Dr. Debbie Goodman, that is fascinating. I hope you write an article on this. Maybe you already have, but if you haven't, you could call it a jarring case. And I wonder if with that R, if there is a revenge component with him reaching out, as we know he did, on Instagram to at least two of these beautiful young people, and there was no response back. So you wonder if that could have perhaps served as motive here.